Good evening everyone, welcome once again to another round of the ILR PC F1 2019 Championship as the calendar takes us to round number 4 of the champion and to the land of fire, to the city of Baku, the country of Azerbaijan, as we are going to navigate the streets of the city where the track meets both the new architecture and the classical old buildings throughout its layout. 20 turns, 26 laps are going to replicate those 20 turns this afternoon, and of course expect some excitement into turns number 1, 3 and of course during the very long back stretch from turn 16 all the way to turn number 20. So we can expect plenty of action, plenty of speed and plenty of excitement for the fans, no doubt. Moving to the drivers' standings, as guys can see, we have Shadow leading the championship, 10 points ahead of Lehman. After that we have Nicola Longuet, who unfortunately isn't able to continue with our league. His esports obligations don't allow him to league race with us, so he's going to, unfortunately, is going to get those 26 points, but those are is not going to add to those, as we have Infamous and Igzy, both reserves very close to each other, 1 point apart as they complete the top 5, as we have Entity in 6th, Endinator 1 point behind in 7th, Plexits with 20 points in 8th, Julian in 9th, and Iceman completes the top 10. Now moving to the constructors standings, we have Renault in first with 58 points, 16 points ahead of Williams, as we have Alfa Romeo in third with 34 points, the same amount of points as the Red Bull team. Then we have the Haas team following with 26, 3 ahead of Ferrari, as McLaren follows in 7th with 19 points. Then it is the Racing Points team with 10 points, Toro Rosso with 3 points so far in the championship in 9th, and in last and 10th place we have Mercedes without any points scored in this season so far. So with that, let's get ourselves started with the qualifying session for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So setting everything up on my second monitor, I'm going to be just making sure everything goes alright. What is up, chat? Welcome to the live stream. How are you guys doing? And yeah, while you get, we have our attention, right? Let me know who are your bets for pole position today. Looks like the session is not going to be rain affected, so it is going to be dry throughout, at least from what I can say. I don't see any cloud in sight, so let me know who is your bet. I've seen someone give me or begging my attention to Iceman. Not the greatest start of the session for him. He already went into the wall, or at least into the escape route into turn 2, and doesn't look like he has damage, but he at least delayed himself with that off moment. Now getting on board with the Slovenian Entity of the Haas, gets himself to turn number 1, 100 meters away, rather not 100 but about 70 meters away from the corner, goes on brake into turn 2, the RS wide open, smooth on the power as well, very nicely done from Entity, maximizing the exiting speed, going up through the gears as we wait once again for 100 meter marker board, nailing the apex of turn number 2. You need to, number 4, you need to avoid the curbs in this first sector, because they are quite high and they can destabilize the car quite a bit. Very tricky now sequence of corners, this left-right chicane. You must compromise the entry of the first corner to maximize the exiting speed to the straight, as we go now hard on the brakes once again. A little bit of counter steer as Entity risks losing the rear as he tries to put the power down as quickly as possible. A little bit of understeer as he gets through the very tricky castle section. Now off to turn 13, up through the gears, smooth on the power as well, as he just did to get himself a good getaway, getting himself through the old part of the castle on the top of the hill, and now is going to start going downhill, breaking down to third gear, away on the power very smoothly as well. Now 60 meters away from the corner, gets the really the last braking zone of this lap, as now it is going to be full power throughout corners 17 and 18 and 19, and now through the right hand king of turn number 20. The RS not open just yet. He has mode number 4 on the RS, giving it all from his hybrid power unit in the back of his Haas. He's going to open the RS now, going to cross over the line, and it is going to be a 139.0 for the Haas driver on the softs. Now taking a look at Iceman, let's see what it is. He's still in the first sector. Let me try to take a look at where is each driver. Looks like Cisco also crossed the line with a 141.5. He's going to need to improve on that one if he wants a better result. 140.4 for Iggy in the time being. I'm not sure if BTEC is getting held up by Julian or not. Julian, yeah. Ooh, there was a big lag moment there. But Dazlat getting himself in P3 with a 141.3 on the hards. But yeah, Julian did compromise the lap of the Welsh driver of the Red Bull, the only Red Bull driver taking part of today's race, unfortunately. So let's see how he does. He's getting himself through this last sector. He's getting himself through the finishing line in a second. Or he's very much to the left. Is he going to the pits? Looks like he's going to abort his lap and is going to the pits. Let's take a look at JSR. Our reserve just started his flying lap. Let's take a look at Kruzix. He's just through the castle section. Bounce, he is in the first sector as well. So just trying to figure out who is about to close their lap. Iceman, the Belgian driver of the Alfa Romeo. Let's see what he does. He's going to get himself a bit of damage on that right hand side of his front wing, it looked like to me. But nonetheless, gets himself a 139.7 on the softs. So Shadow also saying in chat that he was held up on his in lap, which is rather unfortunate. But Rataka has left the session, so I don't know if that's just a disconnection issue. Hopefully he can get back. He's currently in the pits, but yeah, hopefully he can get back as early as possible. JSR, it looked to me like he hits the barrier on the castle section. It does have damage on that right side of his front wing, so that's going to be a compromised lap from him. Let's see what he does later on. Julian is still in sector 2. Bounds is closer to the end of the lap. J. Cole is just started with his flying lap. So let's take a look at the Toro Rosso as he's getting himself now through the last couple stretches of this circuit. Infamous, the reserve driver, won the Chinese Grand Prix and is back on top of the timetables. The only driver so far to go below a 138 with a 137.8. Bounce nullifies his own lap. Let's take a look at Julian, who is getting himself through sector number 3. Let's see which time he's going to close out his lap. Which time he's going to close out his lap with. And no, he's actually going to abort in the pits. There's a collision with the wall. Yeah, that was rather unfortunate, but looks like it was not terminal damage, fortunately. But yeah, he's going to get himself back into the pits and going to try out another time. As Andy Nater says in chat that it will be a wet start for this Grand Prix, so I expect every driver to come back into the pits. Those who are on a harder tire than the softs are probably just trying out some practice laps to then give it pins on a set of softs. So it's going to be a wet start. Intermediates or full wets will be used at the start of the Grand Prix, so it doesn't really matter the compound the drivers are going to use at the moment, because they will always just start on the wet compounds. So we have the McLaren. J. Cole is getting himself through the line, and it is P6 so far for him. We also have Shadow coming out of the pits. He's already started his flying lap. Let's get on board with him. His teammate Plexit isn't attending today. It is JSR replacing him. JSR who only attended the Australian Grand Prix as a reserve as well. Got P10 in that race. And Shadow has gotten 3 place finishes at both Bahrain and China. 6th place finish at Australia after an intense battle for the lead with Zerd. Basically 90% of the race he was battling with Zerd. It's just a mistake coming out of turn 3, put him in the wall. He had to pit for a replacement and still managed to recover to P6, so not too bad for him. But yeah, he still hasn't been able to get that elusive win. 2 third places to his name. Respectable results, of course, but let's see what he does. He needs a very good start to the race weekend to maximize his chances of getting that elusive win. Let's see what the British driver does, getting himself now pushing it all from the power unit at the back of his Renault. DRS wide open now at the back, as you can see the flap open on the rear wing of the Renault. Is going to cross over the line, and it is P2. Look at that, less than half a second, or less than half a tenth rather, separating Shadow from Infamous on the top step of the timetables. In the meantime, Infamous just came out of the pits for his own out lap. As we move to one of the Toro Rossos, it is Corporal Carrot about to finish his lap on the hards. He's pushing on those, of course, but he's just trying to get a banker lap of his own, I would say. He's definitely not going to complete the session just with that lap. I'm sure he's going to go out there on the softs at least once. Nonetheless, gets himself within the top 10, so if the race is going to start dry, a respectable result on the yards there, a 143.4. Iceman has been able to rejoin, so he disconnected at some point. He has been able to rejoin the lobby, fortunately, and JSR is going on a full beans lap, on a flying lap, with a fresh set of softs. As I've said before, only appearance was a 10th place finish at Australia. Maybe with a good result here in qualifying, he is going to kickstart his points scoring season. Of course, his reserve rivals, if I can call them that, Igzy and Infamous, they are both occupying the top 5. So JSR is third best out of our reserves, if I'm not mistaken. No, actually not. Cruisix, another reserve, finished 7th at China, so he's actually ahead of him. So JSR is 4th in our reserve count out of 6 reserves that we currently have. So he's looking to improve his stats, I would be led to believe. Let's see. Ooh, a little wide wide there. He took that curb a little bit too hard. It is quite high. And of course, that leaves your front tires. You can't turn without your front tires, unfortunately. So a little kiss on the wall. Doesn't look like he got any sort of front wing damage, though. At least not any that I can see, unless my game is trolling me. Nonetheless, he's going to complete his lap. And it is going to be DRS wide open at the back of the 22. Is going to cross the checkered line. And it is going to be third place for the Renault. 138.6. Not as close to his teammate as he would probably like, as Entity splits the Renaults. Gets himself with a 138.4. Still a bit too far away. Higgsy gets himself on the mediums with a 138.8. Not sure if he's aware of the rain. So yeah, he still has time to come back into the pits and go on a set of softs, but yeah, let's see how it goes for him. Bounce in the meantime got himself 8th place, and we have Infamous, who is on a flying lap on the brand new set of softs. He's had a little bit of a tank slapper there, coming out of the first corner of the sector number 3. Let's see how it goes when he's getting DRS wide open soon. Mode number 5 on ERS. Some say mode number 4 does give extra top end speed, but Infamous is going back into the pits, so he's going to abort that lap. Shadow is also in the pits. We have a few drivers on cooldown laps. Cruisix in the Williams is also going to try to improve on the 7th place he achieved at China, so he's going to be getting himself P7 so far in the qualifying. Is going to start the race if anything maintains like this. If everything maintains like this, he's going to start the race already in his best finishing position. So let's see if he can maintain that P7 until the end of the session. Getting as close as he dared to the walls there, through the corners 9, 10, 11 and 12. Getting uphill now at the exit of 13. Now going full beans through 14 and 15. There's a slow car that is bound on an in-lap. Going hard on the brakes once again, avoiding the curb very nicely there from Cruisix. Let's see at the end of sector 2, is he improving his lap time by over a second? Great improvement there, but almost 1.5 seconds of improvement from Cruisix. Gets himself throwing the car in, hoping the car sticks on the other side, trying to minimize the steering inputs to keep the car as straight as possible without, of course, contact with the wall. DRS wide open on the back of the Williams, is going to get himself through the line, and it is going to be P3 for the Williams driver. Great lap from him, 138.4, fastest out of the drivers within the 138. Now, looking up and down the order, we have J. Cole and Cisco on flying laps. J. Cole is closer to the end of his lap. It does appear like he has, yes, he does wing damage on the right side of his car. So let's see how he does throughout the end of the race. That's going to compromise him. He's still improving by over 7/10, which is commendable given the wing damage. But let's see how it goes from him, getting very fast to the sweeping left and right corners of 18 and 19. Now through the right-hand king of turn 20. As you can see, the modern architecture of the city of Baku in the background, as he's actually going to abort his lap. He didn't really want to abort, I mean, he does have time to get back out there on a new set of tires, given that he can replace his front wing as well. Cisco also has front wing damage. I'm not sure if he's going to abort his lap. I'm interested in seeing if he's going to do it. Let's see how it goes. In the meantime, his teammate Julian is also on a flying lap, and now the Portuguese carries on, even with the front wing damage. And at this point, he does not have time to get back in and come back out on a fresh set of tires to potentially improve that lap with an entire front wing in the front of his Ferrari. So it is what it is. P11 so far for him. BTEC Sim Racer is also just started his out lap. Kruzix, I'm sure, is going to be completing his in lap soon. But let's see what the Dutch driver does. P2 at Australia, and since then he has been nowhere. Did not start the race at Bahrain and at China. Finished 11th place behind his teammates, so he's going to try his best to get back on the good results. Let's see how it goes. He's very close to actually derating. He actually does. Will it affect him? He gets a 138.3. Best out of the 138 drivers. And he's just carrying on and retire from the session, unfortunately. But yeah, it is how it's going to be for him. P3 for the time being for the Dutch driver. In the meantime, we have Corporal Carrot, who's actually on the mediums. Maybe didn't get the memo that it is a wet start for this Grand Prix. So let's see how it goes for the British driver of the Toro Rosso, getting himself now through the very tricky corner number 15, getting now to left-hander of 16, hard on the brakes, improving by a second. If he was on the softs, he would certainly be improving by much more. His best lap time so far was posted on a set of hard tires, so he's definitely going to improve on that one. He might actually get just a tiny bit of slipstream from that car ahead of him, whoever that is. Let's see what Toro Rosso does. DRS wide open at the back of his car. Is he going to derate? Looks like he's not going to, but gets a 142.1. Not gonna get him anywhere above where he was occupying before. So P13 for him, as we have Kruzix also retiring from the session. Not know if because of a crash or if he's just satisfied. Given the yellow flags at sector 1, I'm a bit doubtful. Let's see, Shadow is closer to finishing his lap. We also have Entity still in the first sector. Higgsy, the reserve driver of the Alfa Romeo, is just getting at the exit of corner number 2. Bounds is still in corner number 2 as well. J. Cole just started his lap, and BTEC Sim Racer also started his lap recently. So I believe it is Shadow, the first of this group to close out his lap. Let's go on board with him. Let's actually try to find out if he is going to improve his lap. Ooh, a little bit aggressive there on the curb. Almost lost the rear of the car on the exits. Let's see how it goes. He's improving by a tenth. He was probably improving by more before taking the curb in the way he did, as the checkered flag is waved in front of Iceman, Cisco and Dazzlat. They cannot improve on the times they've established so far. Let's see what the Renault driver does. DRS wide open at the back of his car. Mode number 4 of ERS is going to cross over the line, and it is going to be pole. Provisory pole for the Renault driver with a 137.7. Infamous. I couldn't quite catch if he's improving or not, but he's certainly going to challenge the British driver for the top spot of the table. He's going to cross himself the line, and it is going to be an improvement. Half a second separating him from Shadow, as it is a 137.2. Brilliant lap from the reserve driver of the Mercedes, as we now have Iggy about to close his lap. P3 for him with the 137.8. Finally, he gets himself below the 138 mark. JSR is also getting close to finishing his lap. Bounds does not improve on his position. There was also another driver, BTX Sim Racer, nullified his lap somewhere along the way. Didn't even set a lap time anywhere or at any point in this qualifying session. JSR is going to cross the line, and it is going to be 8th place. He actually did not improve and is going to start the race in 8th place at this point. So unfortunately, he is not going to improve. Just waiting for the game to realize that actually the group chat is spamming quite a bit. I'm going to try. Yeah, I can't invite. There is a driver I can't invite because Deslad has joined. Both Deslad and Rataka disconnected on the loading from the lobby to the qualifying. Their game crashed or they lost connection. So we actually have 16 drivers today, but Rataka wasn't able to post a lap time because he disconnected, and Deslad, the Racing Point driver, also wasn't able to attend the qualifying session. Thank you, Codemasters, for the experience. Thank you very much for that. But there we have very good performance from Infamous with a half a second quicker lap than Shadow, who gets only P2. Higgsy in P3 with the top 4 fully composed by British drivers. Julian, the first of the non-British drivers, in 5th, Cruisix in 6th, Entity in 7th, JSR in 8th, Iceman in 9th, and Bounce closing the top 10. Daz Lad wasn't able to improve his lap because he disconnected, so he's going to be the first out of the drivers outside of the top 10. Unfortunately, that's not going to serve him much because the race is going to start wet. I do not know if it is a full wet race or not, but nonetheless, it is going to be interesting to see. It doesn't look like it is heavy rain at the moment. There's actually some openings on the clouds, so perhaps we are going to have a partly rain affected Grand Prix. Of course, the intermediate period is going to throw. Oh, J. Cole has dropped, unfortunately. We have a really low amount. We have a really low amount of people on that loading screen. Lots of people disconnected, I believe. J. Cole disconnected. Where is... Unless it is a visual glitch, where is the Mercedes? I'm forgetting his name. Where is Infamous? Is not... I don't know. Either that was a visual glitch for me on my end, or most of the field just disconnected on the loading from the qualifying to the actual Grand Prix. By the way, guys, I just noticed. I don't know if the microphone is picking up, but my fan is making some weird noises, so I'm going to have to turn it off because it looks like something is wrong with it. So give me 5 seconds real quick. Okay, back. It was just the mechanism that turns the fan that was getting stuck. The fan wasn't able to fully turn, and it was forcing the mechanism, so it was making a quite annoying noise. Fortunately, that is fixed, and I can still remain myself cool. Now, talking about the strategies, of course, I do not know how long the intermediates are supposed to last. I also don't know how long the rain is supposed to last. But in case they can extend one stint of intermediates before switching onto the dries, they could, let's say they get to lap 10, I would say they could take hards from lap 10 onwards to the end of the race. The hards are supposed to last 14 laps, but of course if you pit in lap 10, you are going to be able to take them a little bit longer, I would expect, because the car is a little bit lighter on fuel, right? So let's see how it goes for these drivers. Let's see what they opt to do, trying to adapt to the evolution of the track conditions. Of course, it's still raining at this point. Sometimes it starts dry, but during the formation lap it starts raining. Sometimes it is intermediate time, but it stops raining on the formation lap. I've seen it happen, but it didn't happen this time around. Daslad is saying on the group chat of Steam that the game isn't allowing him to take control of his car. which is a weird one. But yeah, Esports ready, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the autopilot looks like took over most of the cars by now. So we're going to get ourselves sorted out on their grid spots before the start of this Grand Prix. You can see the cars getting very, very slowly to the grid marks. I don't know if anything is wrong with the game. Probably is. But yeah, there's a spot empty. Julian, oh, who happened? I don't remember who qualified in P4, but he has disconnected as we have now 5 red lights. Lights out, and away we go for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. A good start from Infamous Maza, but a better start from Shadow. He's already getting first place. There's a Haas in the wall. That is Entity already out of his front wing. Julian is going to try to contest the Igzy into turn number 1. He's going to get around the outside into turn number 2. Sorry, that's not Igzy, that is Kruzix challenging the Dutchman. In fact, as we have a spinner, we have Bounds losing the rear, potentially contacts with the Red Bull of Pitex Sim Racer as Cisco leaves a piece of carbon fiber on the track as he has damage on the right hand side of his front wing. Let's see what the Ferrari does. He's going to get himself back at, oh, there's contact, there's Entity going straight onwards. Corporal Carrot also completely missed the corner, also has damage and is considerable amounts of damage as well, and is going to take it back into the pits for a replacement, I am sure. Bitek managed to get himself already from P14 on the grid, I believe, up to P8, so great start from the Welsh driver of the Red Bull. But jumping back to the front, it is Shadow leading the Grand Prix, Infamous in P2 following very closely, Igzy in P3, Julian in P4, the top 4 very close to each other. Now we have Kruzix in P5, a couple car lengths behind, JSR in P6, Iceman in P7, Bitex and Racer P8, Bounce P9, and Cisco closing the top 10. And Rataka is probably not in the lobby anymore. He's even shown as 1 lap down. So it is rather unfortunate to see as Entity. I understand the frustration. Entity just retires from the session. We have yellow flags in Sector 2, so maybe it wasn't just in frustration. We have Infamous getting himself through the inside and on the exit getting better traction, and he overtakes the Renault. He takes the lead of the Grand Prix. Now we have Kruzix getting a better exit, and there's contact. I don't know what happened there. Was it Julian? I believe Julian went into the wall, losing the rear, or maybe he had contact with Kruzix coming out of turn number 19. The camera isn't exactly helping me for the time being. And yeah, Julian definitely has damage on the front wing of his car, getting very wide there to turn 1. And that's not going to help him at all until at least the round of pit stops. No, I see in chat someone asking, no restart from the disconnections. No, unless more than half the grid disconnects, or like unless considerable amount of people disconnect, we don't rstart the lobby. It looked like it was only 2 or 3 people. Of course, it is a 14 driver grid, but still, it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, we are not restarting for that amount of drivers. Cisco loses the position to Daslad. Daslad also adds wing damage. Cisco completely missed the entry. I'm not sure if this is turn 2 or turn 3. Nonetheless, he got himself in the escape road and is going to have a multiple points turn to make if he wants to rejoin. Oh god, he got so close to the wall with his front wing there. But yeah, that one is going to take a while. I invite you to post the whatever 1,000 years later meme, how long you want. You can put it in there, just it's begging for it, right? As we have Infamous, who in the meantime has been able to pull away from Shadow. Going to try to take a look if Shadow has suffered front wing damage somewhere along the way. No, it doesn't look like he has. Julian, maybe a big mistake there, is down to P7. And yes, he is completely out of front wing and is definitely going to pit for a replacement. Let's see how that goes. Ooh, a bit of a Tokyo drift there, or a Baku drift in this case, from Bitex Sim Racer as he gets promoted quite easily to P7, taking advantage of the misfortunes. Oh my god, it just pinned itself in the wall, and a big chunk of his front wing is gone. Iceman is going to have a battle with JSR. JSR is trying to enter the top 5. JSR tried to outbreak his rifle into turn number 1. Iceman is going to do the switchback, getting better exit, and he gets himself on the inside of turn number 2. A little bit of a tank slapper there. JSR just puts the traction down a bit better. No ERS available at this point, of course, but he does have the slipstream. Will it be enough? No, it is not at this point, and is going to maintain P6 for the time being. In the meantime, a mistake there from Iceman that could have given a run to JSR. JSR couldn't quite find the space, and is going, once again, just going to have to stay content with P6 for the time being, trying to get an opportunity presenting to him later on. Julian still came out of the pits in 9th place. That's how far behind everybody else was. So both Ferraris and both Alfa Romeos having a disastrous start of the race. Deslan, I don't know if he has been able to rejoin his car and to take control of it, but nonetheless, he is in P8 at the moment. It looks like he closed in on BTEX Racer in the previous lap, so it might get interesting between the two. It might also get interesting between Iggy and Shadow. As soon as I say that, Shadow does make a mistake getting out of turn 15, I believe that is, and Iggy is going to say thank you very much and is going to get promoted to P2. Let's go on board with Shadow, as let's see what kind of a run he gets out of turn number 19. I'm not sure if he has front wing damage. Despite his mistakes, he hasn't contracted any form of damage. As I apologize for the background signs, it's just the sound for whenever someone posts a message on the Steam group chat. I don't know if I can disable the sound or how to disable the sound, so unfortunately, as they are speaking to each other, we are going to get those blips in the background. I apologize for that one. We'll try to get that one fixed for the future broadcasts. JSR, I was going to say, was losing time to Iceman, but Iceman with a big off into turn 2, missing his braking zone. Hopefully he didn't get front wing damage. The end plates are black, which makes it hard to see. But it looks like he didn't have any sort of front wing damage, fortunately for him, as Julian, Bounds has retired from the session. Where is Julian? Corporal Carrot is also disconnected, as Julian is once again out of a front wing. Cisco, I just want to know, where did Bounds retire? And Iggy looks like he's having very good pace. Bounds just lost the rear, perhaps, coming out of turn number 14 or 15 and slammed himself into the outside wall. He's getting himself in or out of the race. Julian also retires from the race, so Cisco is going to inherit P10. The Portuguese, look at him, how much he's struggling at this point. But nonetheless, he's going to inherit P10. Infamous either is not as comfortable on the intermediates, or Iggy is just having the wet run of his life. I'm just going to take a look real quick at the position changes. So Iggy qualified in P3, it looks like, so he managed to actually only move one position, but nonetheless he dropped behind Shadow at one point, and Bounce also retires from the lobby altogether. And Corporal Carrot, who is disconnected, manages to overtake BTEX Racer, who is on dry tires. Why is BTEX Racer on dry tire? I guess the rain has stopped, but ERS hasn't been enabled. In the meantime, we have Iggy finally pulled the trigger of Infamous, but he's not giving up just yet. Going to get himself the inside of turn number 2. He touches the curb, going to give him understeer. A little bit of a squeeze on Iggy, as he might have had contact with the wall, the Alfa Romeo there. It's going to be a traction battle, a drag race now, up through the gears, both of them. As now let's see who's the bravest on the brakes. Into the inside goes the Mercedes. He does get the position. Iggy a bit squirmy there from the rear end as he comes out of turn 3, and is going to stay put in P2 for the time being. And Shadow trying to be opportunistic there while the top two were battling. Shadow managed to keep up with them or close in on them, and is knocking at the door of that top two. Let's see how that one develops until the end of the Grand Prix. The rain has stopped. Just in chat was saying that rain is getting worse. I believe the rain has stopped. I don't see any drops falling in the from the blackness. The blackness of the halo in the Renault is a good indication, because you can clearly see the drops of water, and I don't see any of them. Actually, Iggy is not really kicking up spray, so at any moment the drivers are going to take to the pits to get rid of their intermediate tires. Ooh, a little bit of a lock-up there from Shadow as Infamous. I believe he made himself got caught out, and yes, he does have front wing damage. Higgsy did get a much better run from that, and is going to challenge P1 there. He did not quite pull it off, but he's not going to give up just yet. DRS is enabled at this point. Ooh, a loss of rear end from Higgsy. Threw the car a little bit too hard, a little bit too aggressive of a direction change. The rear tires did not enjoy that one bit, and he is going to get front wing damage. Shadow actually getting quite aggressive there, braking later than Higgsy into the pits, and he actually, quite opportunistic maneuver, is going to claim P2 from the Alfa Romeo driver. Infamous is going to pit for hards. I'm not sure. He could try to get back on, he could try to take the hards until the end of the race. That would be quite a stretch though. I would say medium would be the best, but I don't know what tires they have available. Fuzel, there was no restart. It wasn't 4 people that disconnected. We have 5 DNFs, but it is not people who disconnected, all of them. Bounce crashed, Entity crashed, Julian crashed, Pit Extreme Racer was also DNF'd. Rataka was a disconnection, and there was 2 more people who disconnected. So I don't think that, at least I don't think that is enough for a restart. At least the stewards and the people in charge didn't deem it necessary for a restart to happen. So it is what it is. So yeah, Infamous rather is currently in P3. Cruisix and Shadow got ahead of them, as of course the Mercedes did have to replace his front wing. Cruisix is on the mediums, and if Cruisix can go medium soft, I believe he can go medium soft. From my indications, mediums can go for 12 laps, and then the softs I would expect them to go 8 laps. So it is going to be interesting to see how it goes until the end of the race. I don't think the mediums are going to last until the end of the Grand Prix, unless my information is wrong. So, as if they are going, since they are going to have to pit again, in case my data is correct, if they are going to pit again, I would recommend them to just go for 2 softer compounds, right? If you are going to pit, at least give it pins on both your stints. But, oh, Cruisix, something happened to him. He's going to the pits again. He's not happy with his choice of tires, perhaps, or maybe just got front wing damage. I can't quite tell. But let's see how... What is he doing? Is he replacing a wing? Yeah, looks like he's replacing a wing, and he's going to switch for a set of hards. So, he's going to take hards until the end, perhaps? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think... I think they are not able to take it to the end, but, well, let's see how it goes. In the meantime, he comes out of the pits behind Daslad, who now occupies P6. Iceman not too far ahead, and then it is a 17-second gap between the Alfa Romeos, who is not too far behind from the top 3 himself. JSR is on the softs, so he's going to try to get himself very quick stints, soft medium I would say, and trying to get advantage of the fact, of course, now he's on brand new softs while they are on brand new hards, so he's going to get a big advantage from the softs to the hards, and then the mediums are not as quick as the softs are at the moment, but it won't really matter, because by the time he gets brand new mediums, the others will be on worn out hards. So, despite making that extra pit stop, he's definitely going to be quick, and we must look out for him to get his best result of the season. He's in a position to do so at the moment, of course. As I've mentioned during qualifying, the best result of the season for JSR was 10th place at Australia. He hasn't showed up since, because he hasn't replaced anyone. He is a reserve driver, so it is only his 2nd race of the season, and he is looking himself to get a very solid result in the top 5, if not even a podium finish. Infamous gets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, promptly beaten by JSR, who gets a 147.2 to his name, and is going to try to close in on the cars ahead. He's 1.2 seconds away from Infamous at this point of the race. So let's see how it goes. In the meantime, we have Dazlad. Did Iceman make a mistake? Yes, Iceman definitely made a mistake because he's off over front wing again. And there's also an end plate missing from the right hand side of the racing point. Well, actually, it went too wide after turn 1, maybe getting caught out a little bit by the cold track, maybe cold tires, or maybe just it didn't brake as early as he should have, given that he approaches the braking zone with more speed because of the DRS and slipstream and all that, right? So sometimes you have to adjust, especially on potentially cold tires. It didn't do so, got just a little bit too wide. Front wing on the wall and front wing damage on the right hand side of the racing points. He still managed to get himself in the top 5, the Scot. So good race from him so far. He's also in a position to do his best race result of the season. He only got 8th place at Australia, 9th at Bahrain and 8th at China. So he's in pace to get better results this time around. Let's see if he doesn't do any more mistakes. Of course, he's going to get a little bit of a setback in the time he's going to lose in the pits if he opts to replace his front wing. But he does have the tools to get out of here with a very solid result. In the meantime, we've had Shadow. Looks like he had a go at Infamous for a little bit. Infamous did get past Shadow in the meantime, as he got also the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. I was going to say Kruzix is also very close to his rival. Let's see, will Kruzix be close enough? He's going to have the RS wide open in the back of his Williams. Iceman is going to the pits. He's going to replace his front wing. And Kruzix is going to inherit P6. Now, Shadow looks like he wasn't able to overtake Infamous in the second DRS zone of this track. So he's going to have to stay put in P2 for the time being. Taking a look at the amount of charge in the ERS, in the battery, Infamous has over double or about double the amount of Shadow or the amount that Shadow has available to him. It is actually the first time I've seen this angle of the castle section, so very cool angle indeed, I would say. Iceman is coming out of the pits with a brand new set of mediums. So he's not even going to take hards until the end of the race. He's going to take mediums to softs, I would assume. Now, Shadow has had a terrible lap compared to Infamous, because he already lost over 1 second to the Mercedes driver. So no DRS available to him, and Infamous is just going to try to pull away and potentially get himself a repeat on his second race, getting a second P1 finish. That would be amazing for the reserve driver of the Mercedes. Infamous gets once again a fastest lap of the Grand Prix, beats his own previous lap with now a 1:42.6, and now he just has clean air in front of him and is able to just imprint the pace he wants, just keep his head down, mind his apexes, do the best job he can, and get himself the win at the end of the Grand Prix. Looks like Shadow isn't really able to keep up at this point. JSR is actually starting to lose space to the cars ahead, so the efficiency of his softs is starting to falter a little bit. Let's see how that one develops until the end of the session. Dazlad, I believe Dazlad has been starting to close in, or maybe Iggy just had an awful mistake. Iggy does have front wing damage in the right hand side of his car, so maybe a big mistake from Iggy allowed Dazlad to bridge a little bit of the gap. I believe the gap was 17 seconds. Yes, it was 17 seconds. Now it is 10 seconds as Iggy is closer to the Scot than to the top 3. The gap to the top 3 is 11 seconds, as you guys can see at the moment. So yeah, we have yellow flags in sector 3. I can't quite figure out who that is. It's Corporal Carrot, and he's still ghosted, disconnected, unfortunately. Iceman is still going. Kruzix having a collision there with the castle section. Those walls of the castle section are still keeping intruders out since the medieval times. And we claimed another victim. Kruzix getting front wing damage on the right side of his car once again, as infamous for the 3rd lap in a row, improves his fastest lap time, and he is 2.5 seconds away from Shadow. So he's really dominating ever since he got the pit stop done. He actually came out, he had to replace his front wing, actually came out in P3 of that pit stop, if I recall correctly. He overtook both his rivals and is up to P1, just pulling away by quite a bit. Now we have Kruzix, who's going to the pits to replace his front wing, I assume. Iceman, in the meantime, is also going to inherit his P6 back. He given up P6 to Kruzix because the Belgian driver got front wing damage, and now the reverse is going to happen, and Iceman is going to retake P6 from the reserve driver of the Williams, the German that is driving for the Williams today. This guy is... Oh, there is a moment between Igzy, and Igzy is in the wall, completely missed the braking zone. This is turn 4. Yes, it is turn 4. Completely missed the braking zone. Is lost completely his front wing, and going to be lucky if he doesn't crash out until the end of the lap, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't really know what speed to carry through the remaining of the lap, and we have some high speed corners. If he gets too greedy on those, it's just going face first into them, or in this case I would say nose first would be a more appropriate expression perhaps. Completely misses the approach to the castle section. Cisco in the meantime also retired from the session, so it is very unfortunate there from Igzy, as he's going to lose time hand over fist. He's going to come out behind Heisman. He's probably going to lose 7th place sorry, 6th place to Kruzix as well, and Iceman is going to get back in the top 5. In the meantime, JSR goes into the pits to replace his front wing and get a brand new set of mediums, and he's going to be pushing on those until the end of the Grand Prix. The Scott of the Racing Points, Daslad, I'm sure he's also going to replace his front wing, and he's going to get a set of mediums. JSR and Daslad are on the same strategy, and even though there might be a little bit of a compromised strategy, maybe the hards were the best strategy overall, their opponents have had so many mistakes, so many misfortunate moments, that it really doesn't matter much, as Iceman gets himself past Daslad and up into P4. So, oh, Igzy actually retires. Igzy, as I want to figure out, and I would say Igzy, I don't know where he retired. Oh, looks like he just pitted the car and retired from the session. He's actually going to get released again, but he's going to pull off to the side at some point. Let's see how that goes, though. Of course, Culper Carrot is still a ghost car at this point, so we only have 6 cars racing at the moment. It's rather unfortunate, because we haven't even reached halfway point of the race. So, yeah, Igzy, I understand the frustration, but retiring at this point, he would have easy points, and it's not guaranteed that no one ahead of him isn't going to do big mistakes as well. Even Infamous can crash himself out. So, the guy's retiring. I do understand the frustration, but it does not help. It's not going to help their standings. Of course, they are going to come out with 0 points scored. Of course, not many of their rivals are going to end up scoring today, but yeah, it is rather unfortunate to see how many retirements we've had today. So, not really the most disciplined of races from our grids today. JSR 31 seconds away from Shadow, so he still came out of the pits to replace his front wing and everything, and still comes out in a podium paying position. Shadow is maintaining the 3 gap to Infamous. He's still maintaining the 3-second gap to Infamous. Maybe Infamous is starting to conserve a little bit his pace. Infamous has pushed for a little bit and is now getting back on his ERS, I would say. He's trying to gain back some of his ERS charge, I would say. But yeah, let's see how it goes for him. Of course, Shadow does have to sweat quite a bit if he wants to catch up to Infamous, because Infamous, since he came in at China, has shown an unbeatable pace. So it is going to be rather interesting to see if Infamous can keep it up. Not only the speed, but also the consistency, because of course even the most experienced drivers have had some nasty incidents on this track. There's a it's quite a punishing track, of course, as most street circuits out there. Not really much margin for error, and of course, no matter how quick you are, if you have a lapse in judgment into a braking zone perhaps, or you just don't account for the wear of your tires turning in, or trying to push through one of the fast corners, not taking into account how aggressively you change the direction of the car and you distribute the weight of the car on that change of direction, you can get caught out and the race can be over for you, or at least heavily compromised. So you still have stuff that can happen, and Shadow is really struggling in the third sector. I'm actually going to try to take a look. He hasn't sustained wing damage since he came out of the pits for his pit stop to get rid of the intermediates. So yeah, Infamous is just better in terms of pace at this point. GSR is also maintaining 31 seconds, so it's not really closing in anytime soon. Iceman 15 seconds behind the Renault. Deslad 6 seconds behind the Alfa Romeo. I'm not sure. I believe Iceman is quicker than the Scott, but let's see. Does Iceman has had his fair amount of mistakes in this Grand Prix. Maybe he can still do one more and give away P4 to the Racing Point drivers. Not too far behind at all. Kruzix is much closer to the Scott than the Scott is to P4 at this point. And it looks like he's actually closing in. He's on hards. And looks like he's been closing in on the Racing Point. So the German driver looks like he has better pace than the Scott. Let's see how that one develops until the end of the Grand Prix, as this is the 6 drivers we have left in this Grand Prix. Just over 10 laps to go until the end of these Grand Prix. So let's take a look. While we wait, let's take a look at the position changes. Of course, Corporal Carrot is disconnected, so it doesn't really count. But we have Deslat gaining 6 places from his start. He started in P11. And Iceman, both Iceman and JSR have gained 5 positions. Iceman started in 9th, JSR started in 8th. So that row of the grid has managed to get themselves in the top 5 just by doing less mistakes than their competition actually. And obviously the wet weather start threw a spanner in the works for everyone, of course, especially at the start, as everyone is more comfortable or less comfortable in the rain than their most direct competitors, right? And then you have some drivers that are more comfortable in the rain that were pretty far behind, so trying to get past, sometimes they can get quite impatient. We had lots of crashes, lots of contact, both between the cars and with the wall. So yeah, unfortunately it is what it is, just the reality of a street circuit. Taking a look now at their tires, they do, sorry, this is not the place I wanted to be at. Looking at their tires, it is already 9 laps of usage for both Infamous and Shadow. The only drivers, I would say, to not get front wing replacements since they pitted to get rid of the intermediate tires. It's quite interesting to see just how many mistakes how many enforced mistakes actually have these drivers committed throughout this Grand Prix, severely compromising their strategies. So let's see how that goes for them. Corporal Carrot is still ghosted, I believe. Let me take a look at him, in fact. Is he still ghosted? Yes, he's still ghosted. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to get himself back to control this car, which is quite unfortunate as well. He actually didn't qualify. Where did he qualify? I don't remember. Let me check real quick. Where did he qualify? He qualified in P13. So he qualified close to last. Yes, he did qualify P13 because he wasn't able to improve on his second flying lap. But sorry about that. But he did, or his AI managed to get himself to P7. So if he was able to take back control of his car, it would be pretty nice for him, gaining some solid amount of points, perhaps. Don't know what the rules say in terms of someone disconnecting for this long and then getting back in the lobby. But yeah, maybe could still grab some solid points here today. Now, in terms of our championships, I'm actually going to put the standings for those of you who arrived later than just the start of the stream. I'm going to show you guys real quick as Shadow keeps on losing time. It's 4.5 seconds now, the gap between the Renault and the Mercedes. I'm going to bring up OBS, so that's going to put the game in pause, and I'm going to show the driver standings for you at the moment. As you can see, Shadow is the championship leader at this point, but Infamous is not too far behind, only 13 points separating him in the lead. And of course, Shadow will still maintain the championship lead at the end of the race if everything maintains like this, but Infamous will get more than half the gap reduced, or the gap reduced to less than half of what it is at this point. So yeah, Nicolas Longuet, unfortunately, for those of you who have missed the news, unfortunately he isn't going to be able to race. His commitment to Red Bull and the Esports series does not allow him to take part in racing leagues, so unfortunately he is not going to attend any league racing series until the season ends, I would say, or until the esports season ends rather, or until he stops being an esports driver, which I don't see happening anytime soon, to be honest. But yeah, so well, best of luck for him in his endeavors with the Red Bull team in the esports series. Best of performances for him in the championship, but yeah, unfortunately we are not going to see him league racing anytime soon, which is, yeah, again, it is rather unfortunate. Lap 18 at this point, and actually I'm going on board with Infamous so that you guys can see, so you guys can take a look at the inputs of the throttle and the brakes of the Mercedes driver. Maybe everyone can learn something with it. Of course, you can see steering wheel movements, right? But yeah, you can really see his throttle and brake inputs on the bottom right of your monitors, as he's getting himself past the ghost of Corporal Carrot. But yeah, maybe you can learn something as getting himself through the castle section, now taking the turn number 13. Ooh, a bit severe of a tank slapper there. Almost lost control of that one, but crucially he keeps the car pointing in the right direction and avoids damage. Ooh, a 5-second penalty there for exceeding the track limits. Unfortunately for Shadow, he is over 5 seconds behind. I'm actually going to take a look at the penalty, so that, not even a warning, just a bang on 5-second penalty. No penalties from Shadow, just a warning from JSR, who might actually be just a warning for contact in the first lap. Iceman does have the same, so 0 penalties. That's led 0 penalties to his name, and Kruzix also 0 penalties to his name. So every one of the 6 drivers that are racing at the moment are not do not have any, sorry, not all 6 drivers. The Infamous did get a slap on the wrist, a 5-second slap on the wrist, but yeah, the remaining drivers currently racing have not gotten any penalties just yet. Getting ourselves back to the details of the tires, they've taken the hards. For 13 laps now, and yeah, I would say his competitors who actually went on the 2-stop haven't been able to keep up the pace. So it is unfortunate for them, but yeah, it is what it is. Looks like they took the best end of the deal, because yeah, maybe I was wrong. The hards potentially can do 20 laps. They pitted at the end of lap 6, beginning of lap 7, so the mediums, the hards could go until the end of the race. It looks like they've done 13 laps on those, so I don't really see them. I don't see Infamous slowing down too much. Of course, is not giving it full beans, but he's still gaining time on Shadow. So I would say it's not really too big of a deal. Those guys still have their tires in tip-top shape, or as close to it as they can get for someone who has been driving on them for 13 laps. Iceman in the meantime came back into the pits, brand new soft tires on the back of that Alfa Romeo, and I guess is going to try to get the point for the fastest lap for him. So let's see how that one goes. He's currently on his out lap, so to speak. He just came out of the pits, but once he gets on his flying lap, I'm actually going to go on board with him and just see if he actually pulls it off, or if he does any mistakes, because Iceman has been pushing and he has been doing a lot of mistakes, so maybe pushing wouldn't be the most wise of choices from the Belgian driver of the Alfa Romeo, but it is the one he's going to take. Who is at this point matching his best race finishing result. He got at China a 5th place, so he's currently matching that 5th place. So nonetheless a respectable top 5 finish, of course. But let's see how it goes for him. He's going to get himself through the last couple of corners of this lap. Let's see how it goes. He doesn't have DRS available to him. He does have mode number 4 of ERS. If he's going to push this hard, I don't think he's going to be able to have that until the end of the lap. He's actually going down to mode number 1. Maybe he just reckons that even if he doesn't give it exactly full beans, his brand new tires are still going to be enough to take them to the end of this lap with a good enough pace for the new fastest lap. Cruisix does get the new fastest lap with a 141.6, so it was just Iceman answering Cruisix, I believe, on the battle for the fastest lap. Cruisix does get the fastest lap, as we have Iceman getting now to turn number 4, doing well to avoid the curb on the inside. Now a very tricky braking zone, the front left tire complaining quite a bit there, but very quick on the transition there from corners 6 and 7, as we get now through 8. And now, very tricky, a bunch of corners coming to you very quickly, turns 9, 10, 11, and the right-hander off 12. A bit of a correction there from Iceman, who threw the car a bit too aggressively into the right-hander off turn number 12. Now appeal through 13, through the blind corner of 14 and 15. Last corner that's going uphill before starting the downhill. The braking zone into this very tricky turn 15 is downhill, and he now gets himself on the bottom of the track, so to speak, to effectively the last braking zone of this circuit. Gets away cleanly from the corner up through the gears mode. DRS on mode number 4 on his DRS is of course not going to get DRS, but nonetheless just trying to make the minimum steering inputs possible to still get a good lap. And in the meantime, what happened? Infamous has crashed into the wall. Infamous has made a mistake. Iceman does get the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and Infamous might have thrown away a race win. He has a big amount of wing damage on his right side of his car. Shadow inherits the lead of the Grand Prix by 7 seconds, and look at this very cool shot from our helicopter crew. So great work there from our boys up in the helicopter, risking their lives, right, to get these very cool camera shots. Look at that, the architecture on each side of the track as well. Very nice, a very modern frame to the pinnacle of motorsport, as he's getting himself now to lap number 22, nursing a 10-second gap. Let's not forget, Infamous is going to the pits, and he does have that that 5-second time penalty. I don't know how close the SR is going to get to him. Oh, he's actually going to serve it in the pits? I don't know. Yeah, he's going to serve those 5 seconds in the pits. So, less of the two evils. As we have Woma asking in chat why there are so many DNFs. Because, unfortunately, it rained early on the race. And, yeah, it took some people who probably didn't practice too much in the rain. And yeah, just unfortunate mistakes. Not those who didn't practice in the rain, of course, didn't have the greatest of performance, and those who did prepare, most of them just had poor, unfortunate mistakes, getting caught out in incidents through no fault of their own, or just locking up a tire and slamming into a wall, or just stuff like that that happens in a street circuit when it is wet. Infamous, of course, 10 laps fresher tires. He knows he has the pace, forces his way through the inside of turn number 3, gets back up into P2. He knows he has now 5 laps, because of course this lap 22 hasn't been completed. So he has about 5 laps to pull away 5 seconds from JSR. He's already pulled off a second, so I would say that gap isn't... No, actually he's already served these 5 seconds in the pits, so he's effectively ahead of JSR. So it looks like he has thrown away the championship, not the championship lead, but the race win. He was never going to get the championship lead unless Shadow DNF'd and Infamous won. But yeah, Shadow looks like at this point it's just going to extend his championship lead, and it just kept himself calm. He knew that he wasn't as fast, didn't risk it, or at least didn't look like he was risking it too much, and in due time Infamous got himself over, not over himself, but got ahead of himself and put it in a wall somewhere, and is now in the back foot. And yeah, I don't think there's gonna be any chances of him claiming a P1 unless Shadow just has terminal damage. Even if Shadow does make a mistake, I don't think Infamous would be able to catch up. It would just require Shadow to not pit and try to nurse the damage until the end of the race, right? So it is a 17 lap old tire set, but these tires, apparently they can do 20 laps. Because if not, they pitted at lap 6, end of lap 6, to get rid of intermediates to get on the hard. So if they didn't last until the end of the race, even though they might have to struggle a little bit with management, if they are not sure they don't do it, they wouldn't have opted for that strategy, right? For example, JSR and Dazlad, they weren't confident on their tire management skills, as we actually have Iceman get himself on the inside of the Scott and gets himself back up to before. Dazlad is going to try to retaliate, but no, he does not have a good enough gap to get himself back on the inside of Iceman into turn number 4. He's going to be following closely though, as we might have some excitement until the end of the Grand Prix, even though Iceman, he does have 4 laps old tires, softs as well, compared to the 11 lap old mediums of Dazlad. In the meantime, we've had yellow flags. Don't know who that was, but Shadow did go into the pits for softs and is going to try to get the full 26 points available to him. He's going to do his lap on mode number 0, I would say. He does have the gap, so he just needs to go on mode number 0 to get as much ERS as possible, and then just give it pins, as of course Infamous does get a 140.1, which is the current fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So unfortunately for Iceman, he does overtake Dazlad, but he's not going to get the extra points. That would be quite important to him. I don't believe any driver has any penalty so far. The only driver that is racing to get a penalty was Infamous, but you can see 5-second time penalty, but he served that in the pits already. So Shadow doesn't even have a warning. JSR does have a warning for lap 1, probably for contact, so no warnings for corner cutting. Iceman, no warnings. Dazlad does have a warning there in lap 8 or something like that, and Kruzix, the last of the runners, does have a warning, so they're not really close to getting penalties. At least the 6 drivers remaining, there's a reason why they've survived. Despite Kruzix, Dazlad and Iceman having encounters with the wall, they've managed to get themselves a clean enough race to survive until the end of it. Of course, it isn't the end until they cross the finish line, only then they can take a deep breath and relax, but nonetheless, they've been able to take it this long, so they just need to play it cool, and surely they're going to be able to take them to the end. Going now on board with Shadow, let's take a look at his lap. Of course, Iceman has had this lap beaten by Infamous. Let's see if Infamous is going to get himself a quicker lap on mediums than Shadow did on the hards. Get himself up through the gears. Mode number 4 of VRS is going to spot on the left hand side the 100-meter marker board. Is going hard on the brakes on there. From there, dropping down to 3rd gear, and away he goes, avoiding like the plague the inside curbs of this first sector. All of them are quite dangerous. to your lap because they are quite high, except for that one of the turn number 5. Gets away from corner number 6 very nicely indeed. Nice traction out of that, about 80 meters away from this tight corner of turn 8. He's going to go on the brakes, and now a bunch of corners coming in quick succession. The left-hander of 9 and 10, 11 to the right-hander of 12 as he goes now starting the uphill sprint through corner number 13. Full beans, mode number 4 of the ILRS. Pedal to the metal, up through the gears, over 300 kpms as he goes hard on the brakes about 100 meters away from corner number 15. A bit too aggressive there on the curves, that could have given him a penalty, but he managed to get away with it. Also manages to get away smoothly out of turn 16, and now it's pedal to the metal until the end of it. Trying to minimize your steering inputs as you go through the high-speed chicane, if I can call it that. Now through the left, the right-hand kink of turn 20. Giving it pins is almost depleting his energy bar, but nonetheless, it's going to be a 140.7. It was almost a 2-second improvement, but unfortunately and crucially for the Mercedes driver, I'm trying to find it, it is a 1 for... How the hell does Infamous get himself a 140.1 on mediums? How the hell does he do that? I actually don't know, like from the top of my head, what are good lap times. If anyone asks me what is a good lap for Spain, for example, I don't know from the top of my head. I just drive and try to do the best I can and try to get my best laps. I don't memorize. Like, I only know if my lap is good enough to be respectable. I don't know exactly what lap time it is, unless I'm discussing lap times after that practice session, right? So, I don't know what kind of pace that is from Infamous, but at least compared to his competition, it is very, very good. Shadow on tires that would in theory be what, half a second quicker, is more than half a second slower than Infamous. A monster lap there from the reserve driver of the Mercedes. But there you have it, Shadow capitalizing on the mistakes of his rivals. Infamous had the win in the palm of his hands, both of them actually, and he threw it away with a collision. Shadow manages to pick up the pieces and is going to get himself crossing over the line to take home the win of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. First win of the season for Shadow. He took the 6th place in Australia, 2 third places finishes in Bahrain and China, and finally he can claim a race win of his own. He must be pretty happy with that one as Infamous gets himself in P2. JSR is going to claim a P3 to himself. Iceman is going to get P4. Dazlad wasn't really able to keep up with them, so or keep up with Iceman after the Belgian driver overtook him, so he's going to claim P5. Both Corporal Carrot, who was disconnected, so he's not going to be awarded any points, and Crucix, I assume Crucix is going to be awarded P6 because Corporal Carrot was disconnected the full length of the race. So yeah, it is what it is. They are going to close the, yeah, where they are. I see a question. Sergey is asking why so many retirees. It was just because it rained and people just had incidents. I don't know how much people practice the rain, but they had a full dry qualifying and the race would be majorly dry. So I'm guessing the drivers opted for dry setups for both qualifying and most of the race. They only had 6 laps in the intermediate tires. So when you are on dry setup, trying to race other cars, because it is the beginning of the race and you are so close to other drivers, on a dry setup, on wet conditions, on a street circuit, these things might happen. But nonetheless, didn't happen to these 3 guys on the podium. It is a 1-3 for Renault, as JSR, the reserve driver, does get his best result of the season, beating by a country mile his previous best of 10th place at Australia. And I'm pretty sure Shadow is going to be very happy with the result. Once again, thank you very much, Codemasters, for the experience. And let's take a look at the official results in a second, unless the game is going to troll me once again. Yeah, looks like the game is going to troll me once again and not show me the results. So, yeah, guys, this is it. Oh, well, this is it. There are the results. We have Shadow taking the win, followed by Infamous. Then we have JSR in P3 from P8, Iceman P9 to P4, Dazlad 11th to 5th, and of course the game had to troll me, so that was the end of it. So this is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it the most we could. If you did, give the video or the live stream a like button. Of course, it helps propagate the live streams, helps propagate the channels of the channel overall, right? And helps the community grow up as well. And the bigger the community, the better quality, in theory, the better quality of drivers we should have, and the closer the grids will be, because we have more drivers, so less separation between each tier. We only have one tier in the PC so far, so yeah, we're looking to grow. So just make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you would like to see more. If you hit the notification bell if you'd like to be notified of whenever we are about to start a live stream or to post any videos. Hope to see you guys next time, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.